Welcome to Find Myself Free, the podcast. I'm Ellie Young, alcohol-free life coach, mom, and athlete. I'm dedicated to helping others change their relationship to alcohol by sharing my journey of transformation. Fascinated by my own capacity for change after decades of gray area drinking, I'm passionate about sharing what I've learned from neuroscience and positive psychology to help you break free from the drinking cycle and unlock your true potential. Hear my personal stories of triumph and struggle as I navigate raising two boys, finding myself after 40, building a business, and doing it all alcohol free. From women's health and cycle syncing to fasting and biohacking, this podcast is your roadmap to a healthier, purpose filled life that starts with changing your relationship to alcohol. It's time to embrace change, find balance, and create the life you were meant for. Welcome to Find Myself Free. Hey, everybody. Before we get to the show, I wanted to invite you to check out my new free resource. It's called Breaking Up with Booze. Check out the link in my show notes. But essentially, this is just a free guide where I break down the two most common beliefs that are keeping women stuck in the drinking cycle. Now, I know what you need. You want to feel confident socializing alcohol-free. You want to be able to manage your stress, but without the crutch of alcohol. And ultimately, we all want to experience joy and connection without the hangover. So this is a completely free resource that you should check out, Breaking Up with Booze, because I know you are finally ready to level up your health. So check it out today. Head on over to my show notes and get the link. I hope to see you there. Hey, everybody. Today, I had the pleasure of interviewing Erica Jacobs, my new favorite yoga instructor in my community. Now, Erica is so much more than just a music. I'm not a music. That's funny. A movement instructor, a yoga instructor. She actually weaves music, movement, and storytelling into each session, creating a magical experience that fosters a sense of inspiration and harmony. Truly, I'm an exercise connoisseur. I've taken every workout class under the sun, and Erica's is really special. It is transformative. You can't help but leave the class completely moved, completely inspired, and your state is changed. Whatever you came into that class thinking or being that day, you leave a better human. And that is why I wanted to interview her. She has a vast background in visual communications, eating psychology, and advanced yoga teacher training. Her approach is both holistic and intentional, combining ancient philosophy with modern practices. And I can totally attest to this. Her classes combine tribal music and then 90s R&B, take you back down into like house music. It is just really powerful, but she does such a good job of the synchronicity, the magic of the movement, the community. She combines it all in a way that is truly powerful and transformative. So I was really excited to interview her today. So I hope you enjoy the show, and please welcome Erica Jacobs. Hi, everybody, and welcome back to Find Myself Free. I have the coolest guest. I've been wanting to talk to her for a long time. Everybody meet Erica Jacobs. Hi, Erica. How are you?
I'm doing well. How are you, Ellie?
I'm great. Thank you so much for being here. So as you guys heard in the intro, Erica is one of my all-time favorite yoga teachers here in the South Bay. And I have just been so inspired by her class, especially as of late. And I wanted to bring her to you guys so you can tap into her wisdom. Erica, tell us a little bit about your history with movement and how you kind of got into the yoga space.
Well, I mean, we've got to take it back all the way to 1987 because my mom taught jazzercise in the 80s and taught all the way through her pregnancy. Even when she was 7 months pregnant, chassed right off the stage into a pile of chairs. This jury's still out if I'm okay or not. Like we'll see. Um, but I have been moving since before I was born.
Yeah.
I've been moved, right, since before I was born. And growing up, I was always dancing. I was always finding a beat, right? There's footage of me sitting right next to the stereo in the living room, just cranking up like a prayer by Madonna. And and just clearly being in my element. And when I was 19, I decided to get certified to teach cardio kickboxing. And that I was very excited. I mean, for me, I've always been a performer. So I think it really started out for me as I love to move, I love to exercise. Of course, there's a bunch of diet culture and toxic, food stuff with both of my parents and generational shit, which maybe we'll get into, maybe not. But I really have always loved to move, but I also love to perform. So for me, getting certified to teach fitness was kind of like the best of both worlds. I got to move my body, but I also got, back then they gave us a microphone, the headset, and we got the mic pack belt that you
Yeah.
snap around your waist. And there was a stage, like they used to have actual platforms in gyms. So it
Yeah.
was a dream come true. And I was practicing to teach my very first kickboxing class on a Thursday night. My first class was supposed to be that Sunday. And that was the night that I found out my dad died suddenly. And so I don't think you know that. Do you know that?
I
Oh,
know.
welcome.
I don't know
Well,
that
welcome to
story.
it.
Yeah.
Well, welcome to it. So
Yeah.
I I got a call. I thought he was home. I thought he was home from his business trip, and he wasn't. He was still in the place where he was out of town on business, and he had died. And I um, was thrown into this world of this thing called grief. And teaching fitness was supposed to start out as just kind of like a fun thing that I would do a couple of times a week. And it actually just right off the bat started as a grief recovery journey for me, and became so much more than just putting on a mic
Yeah.
and a mic pack and sweating to a funky beat. It
Yeah.
became like a catharsis and something that I could actually move through. And in 2000, so that was 2007. And then 2012, I started practicing hot yoga. Um, and then I got certified to teach yoga in about 2015. So I've been teaching movement for almost 20 years, my entire adult life. And it's the thing that I need the most. It's the thing I'm most proud of. And it's the thing that I could barely explain and describe, even though I try so hard because I'm not short winded.
Yeah. That's beautiful, and I am sorry to hear about your dad, and I can see how that would leave a lasting connective impact in your work that you do with this. And I am incredibly like-minded to you. I have loved movement since a small child. I was a big runner, a big soccer player, and I love the adrenaline and I love my heartbeat being up. And what I've discovered later in life is that I really love the connected synchronicity of moving in a group of people. And there is such magic in that. And when you talk about the healing power of movement, I think it really is tapping into this emotion that we access when we are all moving in synchronicity to a beat like that. And there's this freedom in it. And I truly experienced that in your class. I crave it like nothing else. And I think not enough people are able to access this when they go to a workout because they think I'm here because I'm trying to lose weight. There's some sort of, it's coming from a place of fear. It's coming from a place of shame. It's coming from a place of like, I have to because I'm afraid what will happen if I don't. And so you said it, the toxic workout culture, the toxic diet culture, it's robbed us of some of this joy that comes from exercise, that comes from movement and that healing power. Talk more about that.
Well, I from the from a fitness teacher perspective, as someone who's been leading fitness classes in this industry, for almost 20 years, my own body has changed so much. since I started teaching when I was 19 years old. My relationship with movement has changed since I started, my relationship with food, and the language that I use around movement and bodies and and food and all that kind of stuff has shifted. And I've certainly made plenty of mistakes when I was knee deep in my own eating disorder and still teaching classes, and I've said many harmful things. I've absolutely participated in this truly, rooted in white supremacy, rooted in complete, toxicity. This thing that we call the $4.3 trillion health and wellness industry. I've definitely been a pillar upholding that for many years. And I think that it's kind of the role of both facilitators of fitness or facilitators of wellness and also participants to go on a journey, on an ongoing journey of exploring, like, well, what is actually fruitful for me in this space? And am I here because I out of a space of self-loathing and I've got to fix it and I've got to tweak it, I've got to lift it and sculpt it and burn it and shred it and lose it and tighten it? Or am I here to find freedom from that? Right? Am I here to move my body in a spirit of freedom? And I think as both a mover and someone who teaches movement, I've had to grapple with what that means to me first before I can really be of service to people. But unfortunately, I have to teach all the time. So I've had to learn that at the same time that I'm teaching movement to people, which has been very interesting.
Yeah, your class is unique, and like I said, I crave it because not a lot of instructors or workout environments, for that matter, can capture what you do in your class. You guys, I just shameless plug, if you can go to Soul Seek in Manhattan Beach, go take Erica's class. It is incredible. I can only do it once a week, and I wish I could do it more often, but just time doesn't work out for me. But it's truly like an experience, and it truly takes you out of that space where you're like, I am just trying to look at the clock and get this, check a box and get out of here and say that I've done my workout so I can like feel good about myself for the day. So I don't feel like, I mean, I'm definitely one of those people where I came from a history of feeling worthless unless I exercised hard. And part of that was my competitive sports background, that it required me to push my body in extreme ways, push past pain, not give up, don't quit, that whole mentality. And while I love that, and I do think there's some healthy backbone I built in that regard, I lost sight of the joy and the freedom in it. And I would always work out from a place of like corrective behavior, mostly from my drinking. I was like, oh, if you're going to drink at night, then you're going to have to do double the workout tomorrow. And you can't sleep in because you drank last night. Even though my body was like hurting and I was hungover and stuff, I was always like, my way of right siding myself was to always exercise hard. And it was like punishment. It was like I had to sweat out my sins. And I know so many women relate to this, that we use exercise as a way to punish ourselves for dieting, for bad food that we ate, for it's riddled in shame and it's riddled in fear. And
Yeah.
I try to get women in my coaching to really drop that and to feel this gratitude. And I know we talk about gratitude a lot in this culture, but truly getting into a place that takes you out of self and into the oneness of a group like your class does. And you guys, the music in here, like I can't even tell you the journey that we go on, music, and that's part of it. And you really are connecting music, the core human need to be together with others, this awe that comes from moving in synchronicity with people, and then just straight up exercise, like heart pumping, pushing your body, like it all comes together in this way that is transformative. It's really special. Um, so go see Erica before you do anything else. And let's start changing the way we think about movement. Um, Talk to me more about this mindset shift, because I you it sounds like you have been through a huge transformation as far as how you view the culture of exercise, and then how you where you've landed now.
Yeah, I went so about 10 years ago, I took a course. I did a program at the Institute for the Psychology of Eating, which was a wonderful, I mean, wealth of, knowledge, and it kind of exploded my mind and encouraged me and inspired me to look at food not as it being good or bad, but as it being a crucial part of my story, and food being a part of the story that we're telling with our voices, with our bodies, with the way that we live our life and literally move through the world. So I was kind of immersed into this world of looking at myself and looking at my body and my relationship with food, which is ultimately our relationship with alcohol. It's our relationship with sex. It's our relationship with, you know, porn, or anything that can easily be, you know, interacted with in not so fruitful ways. It's not a judgment at all. Like, we need it all. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, I'm a very inclusive person of whatever it is you want to do that makes you feel good and right and whole. And also we get to interrogate that of like, what does it even mean to be good, to feel good and right and whole, right? So I was kind of, like I said, immersed in this world of looking at these things through a totally different lens that was much more inclusive, that was much more kind to myself, and much more compassionate, and also a lot more inconvenient, because I was kind of accountable to the false beliefs that I was engaging with in myself and also passing on to my students every week. So there was a lot of grappling there. So that was like the first shift, I would say. And that also, gave way to becoming certified in intuitive eating, and I've even kind of shifted my own beliefs about what intuitive eating actually means, and is it actually helpful. And I think everyone has their own, understanding of it and their own relationship with it. I would never try to sway anyone in a different direction where they are now. I just certainly have, there's been an evolution of even that education. And then, to be very honest, in 2019, I listened to, can I just plug a podcast really quick?
Sure.
Yeah. I listened to a podcast called Yoga is Dead, and it was hosted by two Southeast Asian yoga teachers. And they were talking about, their first episode was called White Women Killed Yoga. And I embarked on this decolonization of the mind journey of like learning how to cause even less harm in my yoga classes than I thought that I was, and take that route of anti-racism and divesting from, you know, all of the things about our country and our system that are just built to subjugate people, to oppress people. It's all tied in. Like, racism is the same as diet culture. It's like it's a root of it, right? So
Mhm.
expanding my mind even more, and also just shifting the complete trajectory of my life, I started engaging in conversations that were revolving around um, anti-fat bias and fat phobia, and what it really means to be a movement teacher who lives in a bigger body, because I went from being very thin to not being so thin these days. And I hope I'm not rambling, but okay, good. So anyway, just to like wrap up this thought, this particular journey that I've been on the last 5 years has really exploded my mind in terms of not just looking at myself, right? Not just looking at my relationship with food, but actually looking at, well, what does it look like for people to not even have access to group
Mhm.
movement, to not have access to fresh fruits and vegetables? What does it look like for a fat person to go into the doctor, to take a great yoga class and feel so good and strong and powerful and healthy in their body, and then go to a doctor's office and just be told, lose 20 pounds and your headaches will go away?
Mhm.
And so, looking at this, Dr. Kimberly Crenshaw coined the term intersectionality. So now I look at food and exercise and movement and group movement and my role as a movement teacher through an intersectional lens of who is in my classes, who's in the room, and what do they need on the most cellular level? What does their presence in my room, how are they implicated, based on the color of their skin and the size of their body and the experience that they may have that's different from mine? So the shift for me was, yes, looking at my own relationship with food and body, etc., because that's so important. And then the next, like step next, is okay, well, what does it mean to be living within a system where there is an equitable access to the peace, the love, the joy, the freedom, um, the justice that might be afforded to someone who looks like me in many ways. And then also the those things that really aren't afforded to me because sometimes I'm the biggest person in the room. So how it's more like it's the self, and then we branch out to, well, what does it actually mean to be in a
Mhm.
group, and how do we take care of each other?
Wow. I There's a lot there.
I thought
Uh,
I'm just
I'm
giving you
trying
the whole
No,
buffet.
yeah. Yeah, no, and I'm interested in all of it. I'm just trying to think about where I wanna start here, and how it relates back to, like, how I'm working with people as well. You mentioned intuitive eating, and, that is something that I talk a lot about my clients with as it relates to, like, hormone balancing and stuff because we've never been taught that it's always been like food is the enemy and our bodies are the enemy, and no matter what size you are, and I'm sure, you've felt this to different degrees than other women, but we're all sick with it. We're all sick with the same issues with our body and our same issues with the relationship. And, I came from a sports background where I was very confident with my body and I was very strong and fast, but I was never lean. I never really looked exactly like someone who was extremely fit. Like I thought I should be like ripped and like have a six pack and I should, like majority of my soccer teammates. And I was just never that body. So I struggled in some regards to that as well of like I should be this way and I don't represent who this culture of an athlete and a soccer player unless I look this way. And so I carried a lot of like shame. And even now as a wellness coach for women who's coaching about hormone health and like perimenopause and how to like buffer this change that's happening ourselves without a ton of weight gain without like losing ourselves. I struggle too with representing a hate because it all comes back to weight loss. It all comes back to like changing our body. Yeah.
We want it to. We want it to come back to weight loss. And I think one of the biggest shifts for me has been, and it's ongoing, Ellie. It doesn't leave
Yeah.
completely. But I have come to terms with the fact that I will always want to lose weight. It will always be a desire of my heart. And I don't think that desire is mine. I don't think that desire was put on me by my own volition. I think that that is a desire that was put on me by my mother and my grandmother and society at large, and Los Angeles and,
Mhm.
like in Southern California and
Oh, yeah.
media. Um so that is something that I will always want. My question is, what am I willing to do that I haven't already done that destroyed me in order to get it? And is
Mhm.
that worth, risking my mental health, my physical health, my joy, my sense of, belonging in the world? Is it worth risking that because I'm in a bigger body, but I'm also living a much bigger life?
Mhm.
And there's something to be said. I'm not coming from even a position of body positivity. Maybe it's body neutrality, or maybe it's just this radical, acceptance of like, I'll always want to be thinner. So, okay, what's for lunch? I'll
Yeah.
always want to be thinner, and I gotta go to Target. It's kind of woven
Right.
into that. But I
Yeah.
was thinking, I think a lot about the work that you do. And I really admire you because being in the coaching space and working one on one with people, you're encountering story all the time. Perhaps a client thinks you're getting on the phone to talk about, getting on a call with you to talk about, how much sliced turkey should I have? What kind of apple shall I eat at lunchtime? Or how do I balance my hormones, and kind of starting with the body. But I'm willing to bet that you hear a lot of stories, and you hear a lot of experiences that people have that they would have never known had anything to do with the donuts,
Yeah.
or the sandwich, or the wine. And
Right.
yet it's like, but that's where the meat is.
Mhm.
And I talk a lot in my classes about health behaviors and how they are morally neutral. And tell me if I'm like veering off the deep end, and we can always go back. Um,
No, I like it. Keep going. I don't know why there's balloons.
balloons.
Yep,
There's
we're
balloons.
celebrating that.
We are celebrating.
Yeah.
We are celebrating going on many, many, many tangents.
Yeah.
So I talk a lot about health behaviors. I also talk a lot about things being morally neutral. So, for example, the health behavior of eating or drinking a green smoothie is morally neutral to smoking marijuana. They're morally the same.
Mhm.
I'm not saying they will yield the same outcome. I'm not saying that your body will feel the same after eating and or slash smoking it. I'm saying that you are still a good person
Right.
at your core, whether you're drinking a green smoothie or smoking some weed. I want
Mm.
to take that a step further and be like, are we sure that drinking a green smoothie is a health behavior across the board? Maybe we should try telling that to someone with diverticulitis.
Mhm.
So, you know what I'm saying? Like,
Right.
we have to, there has to be a morally neutral position, in my opinion, before we start picking apart the things that we choose to eat, smoke, the way we move, the things we drink, whatever that may be. Because if we are sitting in a space of guilt and shame, we've missed the whole thing.
Yeah.
We have lost the opportunity to go all the way into self study and discover, like, what does it what does it mean to have a I wrote a poem about a pink frosted donut because I'm talking about donuts in class this week. If you're
Okay.
coming, stay tuned.
Yeah.
But I the idea being like, yeah, for one person, eating a donut might represent a poor eating choice that leads to a number of health issues like diabetes, for example. But for another person, a donut might represent a triumphant step in recovery from an eating disorder. And for another person, a donut might represent the only food they'll have access to for so many reasons, including systemic ones. And for another person, a donut might represent a moment of pure nostalgia. And so
Mhm.
you might, if you're going to sit here and worry about a pink frosted donut having 260 calories, but you're not going to tell me about how that donut reminds you of your first kiss, we've missed it.
Mhm.
And you might need to eat that donut. In fact, eating that donut might be the healthiest thing you could do to tap in to that story and that part of you, and maybe write a poem about it. You might actually consider eating the donut as a massive health behavior.
Hmm.
So it's neutralizing everything so that you can get to the story of it.
Wow. I love this particular tangent because, um, one, I have a problem with donuts, or I will say had, past tense. I think I'm over it. Um, but you're onto something here with the shame, and it's something I talk a lot about too, is that if shame were an effective tool for getting us to change a behavior, none of us would have problems. We'd be
Yeah.
great. We'd be like, I was ashamed of making that choice and I never did it again because I was so
Never
ashamed.
ever did it
Yeah.
again.
And
The
instead,
end.
shame drives more of, the self-medicating, these coping mechanisms that aren't healthy. And I love that you're saying come from it from a neutral place. We are not inherently bad. I'm coming from the lens of like alcohol or perhaps overeating, the processed foods and things when we're trying to balance our hormones, which those are intricately tied as well. Yeah, it is not your fault, right? Our toxic worlds we live in, the way we've been conditioned to drink, the diet culture, the fat shaming, all of these things are wrapped up in this just soup of conditioning. And when we shame ourselves about it, like you said, we're missing it. It is not, that isn't, you're not good or you're bad, but it still means you need to observe yourself. You still need to study yourself, like you're watching yourself on the Discovery Channel and be like, oh, look at little Ellie. Like she's upset. And all of a sudden she's going for the donuts. Like watch her as she heads over. Well, she's having more than one. Look at that. So I, my donut story is so many people know that I love donuts that I would be like sent them on my birthday regularly, like crazy ass donuts, all the like specialty ones. And I would like
Yeah.
slowly overeat them over the course of like a week and like regularly make myself sick on my birthday all the time
Yeah.
on top of like partying my ass off with alcohol as well. But donuts were like, even when I quit alcohol, I was like, I'm still going to let myself have the donuts because I already did this huge thing with alcohol. I'm definitely going to let myself still indulge. And yet they would make me sick, like physically ill. And I was like, my belief that this donut is a reward for me, like you said, whatever it represents to this person, neutral, good or bad, it represented some way of reward to myself and it replaced alcohol as a reward. And so again, I love these conversations because I think aha lights go off for people. And that when you can observe yourself from a neutral standpoint, where no shame and no guilt is attached, you can really go, oh, isn't that interesting? My little computer program does these things with these things, and I've been conditioned that it's not my fault. But when the more space you can create between yourself and your behavior without judgment, the more opportunity you have to nudge yourself into a different direction that's going to serve you better. And you get to rewrite these beliefs about like, is a donut really a reward? How silly is that? Why am I rewarding myself? Not that you should never eat a donut, but like, why am I rewarding myself with something like alcohol or like donut that physically does make me ill and has these kind of negative, chain of reactions in my body? Um, I really love that. The neutrality. I had never just thought about it like that. Being shame free is coming at it from a neutral place.
It
And
has to.
yeah.
It's a prerequisite because if you're not neutral and the stakes are too high and you have too much skin in the game to begin with, then you'll never, in my opinion, in my experience, actually, I'll use I me statements. I won't, there will be no fruit that is
Mhm.
born from sitting in judgment of the things that I'm doing all day long,
Yeah.
because then I'll never be curious enough to see what I can do to make my soul a little less sad about it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I'm tired. Ellie, I'm exhausted from hating myself and judging myself, and I've got this mean, nasty little voice that lives in my head all day long, and she's so mean and she's so hurt and she's
Mhm.
so broken, and I'm like, yeah, I'm really sorry. I hope you work that out. That just isn't my experience today. Like it can't be
Yeah.
my experience today.
Yeah.
Um and God bless us. Like every time we open our eyes in the morning discovering that we've made the wake up list yet again, right? I believe that we inherently walk out and live our days in a hallway of mirrors. We're always being reflected back. Like ourselves are always being reflected back in the way that we drive, right? In the way that we interact with the people who we live with at the dinner table, at work. We are always being triggered. We're always being directed back at ourselves, but we don't call it that in our everyday life unless you maybe go to a yoga class and the yoga teacher is talking about a concept called svadhyaya, which is actual self-study, which is what we're talking about. So it's like, all right, we're doing this thing anyway, right? The thing is evolving with or without us consciously being aware of it. But if we can put ourselves in physical spaces and put our body in the way of the opportunity of looking within, even just for a 50-minute class, that's enough. That
Mhm.
is leaps and bounds. And that will take you so far if you can ungrip the expectation that it will transform you overnight.
Right.
Like let it be a process. And that is my ultimate goal in teaching movement. It's incremental tiny little shifts. What did the bicep curls show you about yourself today? Because it's not about the bicep curls, but sometimes you have to do the bicep curls in
Yeah.
order to get the message, and then you can hang up the phone until the next message is coming through.
Yeah. Well, I would say that not just any bicep curl. It has to be a bicep curl inside Erica Jacobs' class
It
with
has to be
the
that to the beat.
powerful tribal music followed by some R&B from the 90s. I mean, it's
It
talk
has to
about
be. Sorry, I interrupted. Go ahead.
No, that's fine. Yeah, that's beautiful, and I love what you were speaking about getting into environments. Um, I talk a lot about environments in my coaching, and this is why your space is so special and so significant. It's because, yes, putting yourself in environments that encourage growth, that challenge you, that it's just the right amount of hard, and I think um, yoga can kind of it can get lots of different wraps. It can get a stuffy wrap. It can get, you have to look a certain way wrap, and I think what Soul Seek Studio,
Mhm.
I'm blanking on it right now, has done is curated a ton of incredible instructors that offer so many different varieties of yoga. Your class being my favorite, but,
Let's be
but
clear. Let's stay on theme.
Yeah, and then allow, like you said, like you're not just teaching yoga in there. You're teaching this openness and to experience, to go inward and to like play a little bit. It's because it has to be fun when we hold it so seriously and so, our observation of ourselves with such a critical eye that it loses again this like, hey, you woke up today and life is pretty rough sometimes and we're okay. I mean, I had a wild morning. My son has been homesick with strep throat for the last couple days, so I'm a little sleep deprived. My work schedule's been all over the place. It's created just a lot of disruption in our day to day. I mean, everybody who has had sick children know, um, and I was feeling sorry for myself a little bit. And my older son, my 13-year-old, all of a sudden just randomly said, "Oh, so and so, da da da." He got upset the other day because someone teased him about his mom dying. And I was like, wait, what? And he dropped this bomb on me that this former soccer teammate of his mother had died. And I probably have seen this woman within the last year, and I had no idea that she was sick or that she had passed away. And it hit me like a ton of bricks this morning because I was just like, whoa, like I had no idea. And I'm thinking to myself, here I am feeling sorry for myself, having my sick kid home for 3 days, having the disruption to my life and my sleep. And I'm like, what that family would give to have one more day with their mom, or like what that mom would give to have one more day back in her life with a disrupted, chaotic, sick kid life. And it's like I needed to hear that, and I needed to have that juxtaposition slap me in the face this morning to kind of get me out of my funk. And I don't know sometimes I am so grateful for my sobriety because I don't know if I would have this intuition or this access to that capacity for gratitude all of a sudden if I wasn't alcohol free, if I wasn't in this place where I can truly look at myself without self-medicating, without coping, without all the shame that comes from living in a place where I'm using a substance to numb out, you know? And so again, I just getting into these environments where you have that opportunity to really explore and to there's freedom there. There's freedom there like unlike anything else. And I want to talk to you about the no mirrors in that classroom now. Some people don't like it because it feels like a dungeon and it is very dark. It used to be all mirrors and now it's a brick wall. And I at first didn't like it because I was like, I want to be able to see my form. It helps me balance. It helps me also see what the other people are doing in the room and be like, am I doing it right? But now I love it because it has allowed freedom from any judgment. And it allows you again to just go inward and be like, what is this movement doing for my body right now? How is it making me feel? Yeah.
I love the no mirrors more than thought that I would, and I continue to love having no mirrors because I work at that studio and I also teach at a studio up the street with all mirrors. And I can't speak to everyone's experience, but I know that body dysmorphia is, can I swear on this podcast?
Yeah. Yeah.
Is a motherfucker.
Yeah.
And I'm telling you, I go into my bedroom and I'll look in the mirror and I'll be like, damn, girl, you look great. Go get the world. Then take them home with you, right? Because you're so
Mhm.
hot. And then 10 minutes later, I'll walk into my room again and see myself in the mirror and be like, what the fuck happened in the last 10 minutes?
Yeah.
And I am, someone who I'm very uniformed, literally. I like to wear the same thing. I have the same shirt. I have 9 of the same shirt, the same
Mhm.
top that I wear to teach, and it works for me in this season and this iteration of my body. I have a very specific pant that I like to wear. It's Lululemon Align. I love it. Like,
Mhm.
but I'm also finding myself shifting, like slowly shifting into the teacher that wears just a sports bra and some pants and Lululemon pants. And that's a big deal for me. And I'm not coming from the angle of like, oh, you're so brave. Because a lot of people tell fat people that they're so brave for just like putting clothes on their body. And that's
Mhm.
not the avenue I'm taking. What I'm saying is I I've been putting on this sports bra that makes me feel invincible. And they're hard to find, right? It's hard to find clothes that make us feel good and empowered and put together and that we love the skin that we're in. So I celebrate anytime I come across that and then I'm like, okay, I need 10 of these
Yeah.
because I need to be able to feel like this all the time.
Yeah.
And I wore just the sports bra and pants to teach for the first time last Sunday, actually. And I was on top of the world. I felt so strong. I felt like I landed in my skin because I couldn't see anything, could only have an interoceptive experience of my body rather than a proprioceptive response or experience. And so then I go up the street to teach at the other studio, and I had to try so hard not to look at myself in the mirrors because I'm working. I'm working. I am in my zone of genius
Yes.
and I'm distracted by what I see in the mirror. And it's the mirror can be very helpful. I would also argue that it can be a big hindrance too. It just depends on what's the intention, and is there a way that maybe not every single wall could have mirrors on it? Because I definitely like to turn my classes around from time to time and have them face the windows,
Yeah.
and look out. So, yeah, I love the no mirrors. That's my giant 20-minute way of saying I concur. I
Yeah.
love the no mirrors.
Yes. Yeah, and it's so interesting too because you sometimes I go in there and I don't even know who else is in the classroom because you're right, it is such an insular experience. You're really just there with the instructor, their voice, their music, and maybe the kind of the couple of people around you, which I just have to say sometimes I get a funny partner, no, a seat partner, a yoga side partner,
A mat mate.
mat
Yes.
mate. Um, you might know who this guy is. We're just gonna no names, but he does horse breath all the time throughout class. He's just letting it rip like all it always makes me laugh because I'm like, and he also adds a lot of his own props in your class, which I was like, dude, you're missing it. Like, I know you want to do your own thing. He felt like the need to like intensify every motion by like, I'm gonna add this at a double time pace and I'm gonna add the bands. And so he's over there just awkwardly killing himself with all this contraption and these bands on horse breathing on me.
Yeah.
And I was like, dude, you're missing the magic of this like moment where you're supposed to be connecting to everything. So,
Yes, and also that is, I think about that a lot because I am very big on the beat. The classes that I
yeah,
teach they are beat driven. That
yeah.
is the way that I teach. That's the way I'll always teach. And even in a power class where it's not that where the central the central thesis, if you will, of a style like that is not to be on beat. I will always find a way to move with the beat at certain points of the class. And what I've learned is, well, a couple of things. I have definitely been that girl in a fitness class or at the gym who's lifting way too much weight or and I still do. Honestly, when I'm working out by myself, I have to really trust and think real hard about my weight selection. If am I trying to make sure that I could still lift 50 pounds off the floor? Or am
Mhm.
I actually trying to get stronger? Because if I'm trying to get stronger, then I might have to go down, see how many I can do, and then check in with myself after that. So when I look at people in my classes who and I know it, I know it's so hard because I ask a lot of my students. I ask them to put down weights and not use them just so that we can flail our arms to the beat in unison. I know that that's not what the class description is. I know it. I'm asking you for a little bit of willingness,
Yeah,
but then I also have to hold that grace
yeah.
for people who are there to move their body in the way that they really want to, and I want that for them. I want that for them.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. You got to do what feels right for you in the moment, and that's their time and their, Um, sometimes I just think it can disrupt the synchronicity of that beautiful
Yeah.
moment, which is it's so powerful to feel that. And that's a real thing. There's this amazing book. It's called Awe, AWE by Dr. Keltner. He's the doctor who was consulted for like the Inside Out movies to like all the emotions.
Oh my
Um,
goodness.
this book has like changed my life. It's one of the books that I read in early sobriety that I was like, that's it. That is what I'm experiencing right now. And it's
I'm
the
gonna write it down.
yeah, it's the 8 wonders of awe, the way we can experience awe, which is it's one of the only emotions that takes us from a place of instead of it just being about I, all of our other emotions are very I centered. Like I'm happy, I'm hungry, I'm angry, I'm sad. To awe makes us feel incredibly small and it connects us with the oneness of
Yes.
the universe. And it takes you out of your head, takes you out of your narrative and your story. And you are literally like one with the universe. And the one of the wonders of awe is synchronicity of movement. And it can be experienced like at a rave, it can be experienced in a workout
Yep.
class, in a sporting event with like everybody's cheering and chanting at the same time. And there's a heartbeat aspect to it where heartbeats sync up. Um, and that is such a powerful thing. And you do it in your classes, and not everybody can do it. And so it's hard when you go from a class like yours, like Soul Cycle. I used to be a huge Soul Cycle like addict, I would say. Again, another part of my early sobriety story was like Soul Cycle addiction because I'm crave that that feeling. And for people in early sobriety, I highly recommend movement as a healing mechanism because, it's so funny that we socialize. We think socializing has to be done at nighttime with alcohol, like out in these particular environments. And it's like all of those core human needs that we're trying to meet with alcohol can be done in these other places and these other avenues. And you can experience even more joy, even more awe, and more human connection, more socialization. And it's really, so I coach people to like get away from this idea that that's where your social world has to live. You can socialize in a yoga class at 6 a.m., 7:30 in the morning. Like find those places and explore that. And instead of focusing so much on what you believe you're giving up in this thing, and instead open your brain into like, how much can you add in this other space and explore and tap into, because it's just such a beautiful thing. I think movement is the number one remedy for like everything in life right now. All the studies are now coming out saying it's actually more effective than antidepressants. Dancing. It was dancing in particular, more effective than antidepressants like across the board.
Yes. Um, the power of movement has, I mean, it's been known forever because humans have been moving since we've been moving, right? I mean, there's been so much to that. In yoga, and we talked about this last week when you were in class, we talked about a principle of yoga philosophy called brahmacharya. And brahmacharya, it actually it it translates to moderation, and it translates to restraint. And I think in our American culture, at least in my experience and where I've grown up, we've got weird relationships with words like restraint and moderation and the seeming, this is a I remember being on the playground, and the big thing was like, this is a free country. I can do whatever I want, right? It's like the little
Mhm.
kids being like, this is a free country. Yeah, well, it depends on how you define freedom. If you're engaging in behaviors that make you feel um that you are limitless, but you're also dying on the inside and you can barely look at yourself in the mirror, like let's examine how free you actually feel. But brahmacharya invites us to because yoga, and I believe all movement is a calling and an insistence on getting free. It is fundamentally rooted in personal freedom and collective liberation. Period. End of story. And so, if we reframe a concept like you can call it brahmacharya, you can call it freedom and captivity. You can call it whatever you want. But when you really break it down, you can rephrase it to be freedom to harness your energy, like freedom to put things in their right place. You and I are uh, mystical beings that contain multitudes. I don't even know how we survive feeling extreme sorrow and grief in one moment, and then feeling absolute ecstasy and ecstatic joy in another movement and like in another moment. And where are we supposed to put that? Where is it supposed to go? Sometimes it goes into alcohol. Sometimes it has to go into, drugs. Sometimes it has to go into compulsive behaviors. And the dose makes the poison, of course. But like, I it's like I ask myself all the time, okay, you're feeling a little bit of love sickness for someone who's not available. That's very normal. Not going to judge you for that. That's beautiful that you have a desire on your heart for that human connection. What does your lust want to be when it grows up? Where does it want to go? Do you want to write a poem? Do
Mhm.
you want to sequence a yoga class with a killer playlist that will help you cultivate some of these good feelings without harming yourself and other people in their relationships, right?
Mhm.
Like what does your grief want to be in its fullest evolved expression? It's the freedom to harness that which lives in us and should never go away. It just needs a place to go. So I think a lot of times we mistake, quitting drinking as being like kind of like a punishment or a cold turkey aspect of it, of this is being taken away from me. But also, I would also argue that you're free. You are free to take all of the reasons why you feel such joy and calm and serene in your drinking and put them in an even better place. And what does it want to be when it grows up? That's what I like to
Yeah.
ask.
No, I love that. That was really profound that like all of the things we're trying to quiet or some sort of state change that we're after when we're trying to drink or some sort of story that we believe alcohol's going to help if help me achieve x in this moment, and instead getting really curious and listening to what is driving that. Like you said, is it loneliness? Are you angry? Are you tired? Are you frustrated? Are you dissatisfied with something in your life that you just are stunting that growth by drinking because you're just saying, I don't like how I feel. This is uncomfortable. I'm going to drink and I'm not going to feel it temporarily. Instead of allowing those emotions to mature and to actually, yeah, that discomfort's there for a reason. It's trying to get you to grow. It's trying to get you to change. And you can channel that in so many different directions. And so we have just blanket channeled it into alcohol for a really long time. Like, entertain me, alcohol. Help me cope with this, alcohol. Help me experience joy, alcohol. And it's like, no, like we just lost all creativity for like living our lives in all these other ways. And so, um, accessing that, I love that idea. Like, what does this emotion want to be when you grow up? Like, that's a really cool way because it is about growth and is it about connecting to that future self and
Yeah.
believing in that future self, instead of always looking backwards about like, oh, I'm depriving myself and I can't have this life. People think like I have to give up so much. And it's like, no, you're really actually completely building a new self over here that has infinite possibility. Um,
And and it's a creative endeavor being alive. And I know that sounds a little bit, you know, hyperbolic, but like it's this is a creative process. Being alive in a meat suit for,
mhm,
several decades is the art project of a lifetime. It's trial and error, and it's a creative endeavor. It is something that you go on. It's a vocation. It's a calling. However long our heart is supposed to beat and the blood is supposed to circulate and the lungs are supposed to work, that's our time to figure out in an ongoing way, what is the next right action for me to take? And what's the next exciting action for me to take? What's the next necessary one? I think all the time about divorcing the self, like me, Erica Jacobs, from some of the things that weigh heavy on me, some of my compulsions, some of my afflictions. Um, and when I ask, okay, well, like what does this lust or what does this jealousy want to be when it grows up rather than like when I grow up? Because
mhm,
I'll grow up. That's fine. I'll get there. But like, what is this thing? Like, what does it want to be? It creates space so that, again, coming back to the shame piece, I'm not personalizing it. I'm not demonizing myself for, if I was someone who drinks, and I'm personally not, but if I wanted to ask my, alcohol compulsion or my alcohol dependency, what does it want to be when it grows up? If it was in its highest, fullest expression, how would it channel itself? And it's kind of like when someone loses someone that they love and they go through a horrible tragedy and they turn their mess into their message, which is why so many foundations exist, right? It's
mhm,
like when someone channels all of that grief, all of that sorrow, all of that tragedy into an endeavor, into a foundation, into a charity, into a business, into something that is born out of that.
mhm,
You yourself might not be a much happier person. That's
mhm,
fine. You yourself might not feel any more evolved, any more joyful, any more pleasure filled. That's fine. Maybe that will come. But you are engaging with something higher. You have figured out a way to harness all of the complexities of what it means to be alive and all the multitudes that you hold, which is burdensome. It is
Mhm.
burdensome being alive. It's burdensome being the owner and the inhabitant of a body. Oh my goodness, we have to feed it several times a day. We have to
Mhm.
sleep it and walk it and water it. We have to clothe it. We have to bathe it. We have to like
Mhm.
enough. I don't even know how like parents do it. You're responsible for your body and all these other people. I mean, hats off. And I'm not trying to trail off, but like my whole point is bodies are a really big deal. And we feel a lot of things in our body and they're always communicating with us. So, what's been helpful for at least for me is to take myself out of it so that there's no real pathway to shame and ask this compulsion, ask this habit, ask this tendency. What does it want? Where does it want to go? Because it can't go into the wine glass anymore, unfortunately.
Mhm.
But it can go into the making of a podcast.
Yeah.
It can go into spending time talking to other people on
Yeah.
your podcast who
Yeah.
have these same stories, you know? Like it can go somewhere if you let it, and it will transform you if you're willing for it to do so.
Yeah. Well said. That's an excellent way to wrap things up is I have taken my mess and turned it into a message for sure. Um, and I think that's why I'm so passionate about what I do is just how much it did transform my life and provide access to so much more profound growth than I ever thought was possible. I've grown more in the last 3.5 years since I've been alcohol free than I did in a decade.
I'm
Um,
sure.
and, when people get curious about what it means, Sober October is coming up and people immediately are like, that's going to be no fun. I can't do that. They have lots of resistance come up. And this idea of exploring, this idea of observing ourselves in a shame free way, compassionate way, and asking yourself what else you can do with this emotion that's coming up and encouraging you to get into places like a yoga class, like a studio that is about movement and beat and synchronicity and allowing yourself to feel those things with all five of your senses and tap into that healing power of awe. I love it. There is so much more life to live that is outside the bottle. And Erica
There's
James, you completely embody the most healing aspects of music and movement all together. Thank you for doing what you do and the wisdom you share in your classes. I'm so grateful to know you and so grateful to have you on. Thank you
Thank
so much.
you.
Where can people find you?
Well, I've been off social media for 2 months, but I'm still there, so you can find me and whatever I've posted in the last however many years, uh, on Instagram at What's Eating Erica J, and or you can just type in Erica Jacobs and my face will pop up. And, you can find me at SoulSeek. Check the schedule in El Porto in Southern California. And I'm also at Hot 8 in El Segundo.
Oh,
You can
that's right.
follow me
Hot
there.
8. That's actually where I first took your class was from Marcy's birthday, like a couple years
Oh,
ago.
oh my gosh, you were at Marcy's birthday, the
Yeah.
disco party.
Yes, I did it, I went to your class, it was the only yoga class I did for the whole year. It was like I used to be a big yoga person pre-COVID, fell way out of the habit after COVID and started only working out at my house, and then I was,
Yes.
like, getting back into yoga starting in May this summer, and your class in particular, it's like, "Oh, that's right, I forgot the power of community and movement," and that's why I'm still in that, early, butterfly, love this class so much stages. Yeah,
I I just have to add, and you don't have to include this into the episode at all. I feel compelled to I'm thinking about your sweet audience. Like I'm thinking about the human, the woman who is 5 minutes from where she wants to be. right? Like I'm just thinking about, someone who hasn't quite given up drinking and hasn't quite, really taken that leap. And I've been off, we all have our shit. We all have our thing, right? We all have our hurts,
Right.
habits, hangups, compulsions, addictions, whatever. And I have been off social media for 2 months. I will be off for indefinitely. It was supposed to be just 30 days, but I've clearly seen we need a little more time because I was scrolling for upwards of 10 hours a day. I was getting lost. I'm on TikTok and I'm on Instagram and I would literally just watch myself not be able to stop and not be able to get off of it. And in the time that I've been off, of course, the expectation was that my whole life was going to become this like colorful palette of wonder and awe, and that all of these opportunities were going to come my way because I was making space for all the magic to happen. And, the reality is my life is the same. I did redo my living room. And I mean, and I did it in a real quick turnaround because I was not checking social media every 30 seconds trying to paint my walls, while trying to paint my walls. And this has come up for me over and over again where I think I'm going to make this, I call it manic repair. So, like, whether I'm coming home, whether I'm getting off social media, or whether I in the past would come home and totally clear out my pantries and being like, we're done with grains. We are vegan tomorrow. We're done with this and we are carnivore tomorrow, right? This like
Yeah.
manic repair.
Yes.
What I have seen is like, first of all, there's never going to be nirvana on the other side of giving up a habit, not in the way that I think that it would, and not in the way that I picture it. But what I do know is that it's like it's not going to feel, you might not be much happier, like I'm not much happier, but I'm a better person, right? Like
Mhm.
I'm not much, you know
Yeah.
more joyful. It's not like, the window of opportunity and wealth and abundance and like
Mhm.
all these things that I thought would magically come once I just put down the phone. I still haven't put down the phone. I've
Yeah.
just laid down this particular habit on the phone. And so again, like it's it's increments and grace and compassion and movement and syncing up with the moment and meeting the moment. Just it's just it's 5 minutes. You're 5 minutes out
Yeah.
from the next right action.
Yeah.
The version of yourself that
Yeah.
you're
Yeah.
after.
That's interesting. Like, phones give you dopamine, checking in, or it can create a lot of, uh, you know, anger and comparison is the thief of joy type of, frustration in
Yep.
our lives, always scrolling and stuff. But there is a dopamine aspect. That's where the addictive, like, I don't feel good. I want to zone out. I'm going to scroll. Alcohol is the same for a lot of people. But I will say what's very different about stopping a phone addiction versus stopping a drinking addiction is you do feel markedly better when you stop drinking.
Yes.
Because
Yes. And
you're gonna
and I appreciate that.
yeah, you're
The
gonna sleep.
physical.
Yeah, you're gonna like your
Yes.
biochemistry resets, your dopamine circuits reset, and all of a sudden everything starts to feel really good again. But yeah, the phone becomes another cross addiction for a lot of people, and I know it does me
Yes.
too. It's like, well, I'm not drinking at night, so I'm really bored. I don't wanna go stand at a bar for 3 hours and socialize, so I'm just gonna be home alone scrolling now. And so
Right.
it's a really interesting little bag there, but again, observing
Yeah.
yourself and just going, "Huh, isn't that funny? Isn't
And
that
you're
a"
going to need that. You're going to need that because when you start feeling physiologically better,
Yeah,
you're going to have all of your emotions available to you again. So brace yourself, have a good community, right? Like do listen to Coach Ellie, do whatever she says.
yeah,
And that's such a huge part of it. Like you do start feeling physically so much better, which means you're better able to like process things. And a lot
yeah.
of times we
Do you
don't
drink?
want to process.
I heard
No,
you
I
don't
don't.
drink. Yeah,
I don't drink. Yeah.
I think
I'm not sober. I
yeah,
just don't drink. Yeah.
right. I don't even love the word sober. I think it implies like this so much blanket. I try to not use, I mean, people understand that word. And so when I always speak about being I'm alcohol free, I actually don't smoke weed. I did in the beginning. For like the first year, I dabbled in like the edibles and the mints and the 2.5 milligrams and the drinks and stuff because I thought I needed something. And then I
Yeah.
realized it was actually just contributing to more anxiety in me. And I started to feel best completely straight. And so I actually am, I guess, quote unquote, sober. But again, I don't love that word because I think one, it also implies there's some sort of dark story or start some sort of like rock bottom moment. Again, these our words are so important. And again, another reason why I love your class is your words are so powerful. But I think it's really important in the way I talk to my clients. One is I'm trying to remove any shame or blame from any sort of dependence or relationship you have with alcohol because it's not your fault. We've been conditioned to drink this substance and it happens to be addictive. And we've been told it's the life elixir. But I think it's really cool to note that you are alcohol free because again, I don't think someone gets to be this embodiment of joy, spirit, wisdom that you have while still clouding their intuition and access to self with alcohol. And that's one of the gifts that people don't really can't get their head around because they haven't been sober in a really long time. When we started drinking in our teen years, and then we start using other substances to cope, and then we're drinking caffeine to compensate, and it's just this roller coaster. And when you
Yeah.
truly like clear all that stuff out, I still drink a ton of caffeine, but you have this access to self that is like it's there's nothing like it. You get to know yourself on such a deeper level and everything becomes more clear. Your path becomes more clear. And so I think it's really cool. And I think that's why we connected and why um, I'm just grateful to get to know you better through
Me
this.
too.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Ellie. I really appreciate you having me on. Like, this is so fun.
Yeah, we should do it again. If you ever have any type of like class or anything you want to talk about, anything poetry wise, go find her website, guys. She has some beautiful writing there. And check her out at Soul Seek in El Porto. Thank you, Erica Jacobs. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks, Ellie.
Hey, you've just listened to an episode of Find Myself Free. And if some part of this left you wanting more, if your curiosity has been piqued and your intuition is telling you, I'm ready for more, then check out my coaching offers at findmyselffree.com. I have the Brave course to help you break free from booze, and I designed this course with the exact lessons that led to my transformation. I also have the Balance Challenge for those ready to learn the art of cycle syncing to balance their hormones. If you're looking for additional support and to take either of these programs to the next level, I also offer one on one coaching. Now, I worked with a coach for 4 months at the start of my alcohol free journey, and it made all the difference. Being able to talk to someone who knew what I was going through and could help me navigate my new world gave me a foundation of support I could build on. And it's a big reason why I'm a coach today. I want to help others find their freedom and level up their health. If this sounds good to you, connect with me at findmyselffree.com and set up a call. Listen to your intuition that is telling you you were meant for more. I am with you. You got this.